Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great start to your Wednesday and hope you're staying out of all of this mess, this severe weather, this crummy weather here across West Michigan, which is pretty timely considering the guest we have today. Digital reporter Matt Jaworowski is here, as he is every Wednesday, to talk about his past Sunday story. And this Sunday story focused on the deadliest tornado to ever hit West Michigan. Matt, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Phil.
Of course, and before we get started, I do want to remind everybody that dealing with all this weather, we want everybody to stay safe, and Storm Team 8 is staying on top of everything, updating all of the latest information over on our website. We encourage you to go check that out and just stay informed and really ahead of whatever the severe weather may bring throughout the next couple of hours here across West Michigan. You can find that on woodtv.com. Matt, back over to your story, which you can also find on woodtv.com if you haven't checked it out already. I do encourage everybody to go check it out because it is a fascinating story, Matt. But for those who haven't gotten the chance to check it out yet, tell us a little bit about what that story entails.
Sure. Pretty ironic that it posted the weekend before we have this first real severe weather threat of the spring. It focuses on a series of tornadoes that moved through on April 3rd, 1956. So it is the Monday, 67 years since Monday. It was West Michigan's strongest tornado and also West Michigan's deadliest. So that storm system that moved in the afternoon, the day, not to scare anyone, but it started a lot like today, where it started out exceedingly warm for the time of year. I know some cities cracked 80 degrees. A lot of them set record highs for that day, for April 3rd, before two cold fronts moved in, and it sparked a giant storm system all across the Midwest and spit up a bunch of tornadoes, including 4 here in Michigan. 3 of them were in West Michigan, an F3 and F4 and F5, which are huge, huge tornadoes. One of them, the biggest one, the F5, is called the Hudsonville Walker tornado because those are 2 of the areas that saw some of the biggest damage. But it really started near Zeeland, crossed through that portion of Ottawa County, almost cut Kent County in half, and didn't pull up for an hour north of Trufant in Montcalm County. So it was a pretty significant storm. 17 people died. That's the largest death toll for a tornado in West Michigan records.
Yeah, no, and you kind of touched on just the size and magnitude of these storms and how damaging they really can be. I do kind of want to shift a little bit to just how big they are. I mean, we were talking about it before the live stream started, just about how rare some of these storms are. And so the fact to have, a couple that were EF4s and bigger across in sort of the same system is pretty rare and pretty historic.
Correct. And just to be clear, so the 1956 storms actually predate what's called the EF system, the enhanced Fujita scale. Back then it was just the Fujita scale. So an F4 is about the same as an EF4. The EF4 scale is slightly larger, so there is some difference there. But the point is, we used to have violent tornadoes, these large storms, pretty regularly here in West Michigan. Or at least across the state, you would see it once every few years. But Storm Team 8 has been talking about this for a long time now, that we are really way overdue for one of these big tornadoes. We haven't had an F4 tornado, I'd have to double check whether it's West Michigan or the state as a whole, since 1977. So it's been 45 years now. So it's one of those things that we have to pay attention to. Another big thing that Storm Team 8 talks about as far as these watching for tornadoes and these violent storms is how much better we've gotten. Obviously, the weather technology and our meteorologists have gotten a lot better and have more tools to use to give people more advanced warning for storms, which is something we're seeing today. But just even like we're talking about the minutes before the storm hits, giving people that extra time to get to safety and be prepared is something that we've really seen impacted death tolls and injury numbers in the last 30, 40 years. So that's something that has really helped as well.
Right, and we are going to get into that in just a few moments, Matt. But you, in the story, you talked about just something that really stuck out to me was this line about it being like 3 hours of just damaging winds, tornadoes, storms, 3 full hours of that. But it really didn't just start or even really just end in Michigan. I mean, this was really an entire Midwest sort of experience back in 1956.
Right. So I believe it was 28 tornadoes total across 11 different states. And there were 2 in Wisconsin that touched down earlier in the afternoon. And that actually, Michigan, the National Weather Service says, kind of gave Michigan a bit of an advantage. Is they saw how serious the storm had potential to become. So they were maybe a little more focused on it. And that gave them a little more of a heads up for the storm across the big lake. The 3 hours is really because the tornadoes kind of went one after another. The first one touched down right off the beach near Saugatuck. That was the F4. It was on the ground for not quite an hour, but it was immediately like, so that one's on the ground. That's rolling through Allegan County heading towards Howland. About a half hour later, that's when the big F5 touches down. That's on the ground for an hour. And then even before that one lifts, an F3 touches down in Van Buren County. That one was a little bit smaller, but did a ton of damage as well. It was on the ground for an hour and 15 minutes. So it's kind of like all across the region, across those 3 hours, there was something major happening and hitting dozens of communities. So certainly an impactful day.
Yeah, and you can just imagine what a tornado can do in a couple of seconds. So now imagine it running around the entire area for an hour 15. I mean, it's just insane to really think about that. And kind of going off on that, obviously we weren't around when this tornado hit, but you, again, got to look at some firsthand eyewitness accounts from that fateful day back in April 1956. What surprised you, if anything, just kind of going through that and just hearing these people's stories of dealing with those tornadoes?
Yeah, I mean, in credit to the National Weather Service, all these firsthand encounters come from them. They've detailed this story very well. So in 1956, we're talking going on 70 years ago. Not necessarily the difference in the attitude of these storms. People understood the tornadoes were dangerous and that they were very possible here, but just the reduced amount of reaction time. I mean, we talk about here how I believe it was Sunday, Saturday, I know Storm Team 8 was talking about we have the potential for severe weather coming this Wednesday. By Monday, it was firmly on our radar. Tuesday, we're telling people, hey, it's just something to keep an eye on, that kind of thing. We knew this morning, relatively early, like, yeah, expect to see a tornado watch, that kind of thing. So putting all these things on people's radars to be prepared in the off chance that weather turns nasty. There are a lot of instances where like, there's some storms that could kick up today, we don't know. But it was really like there were a handful of incidents where it's just like, and we saw the storm forming in the field across the street, like people literally having minutes and seconds to react. So some really interesting stories there. I know for the third tornado, and I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but he talked about how they were out milking cows in their barn, and their father called them out to take a look at this storm that was forming. They didn't even realize it was a tornado at the time because it was so dark out. But it was a matter of seconds before the storm came through. They weren't even able to get inside their home to shelter. They had to cling to a utility pole, and thankfully they did. They were okay. They had some bumps and bruises, but if they would have stayed in the barn where they were milking cows minutes earlier, they likely would have died because the barn was picked up and dropped, and the cows that were in the milking area where they were in the barn were all killed. So just stories like that where, the short reaction time was really stuck out to me.
Yeah, no, and you touched on it towards the beginning of the live stream and also in that question, just the importance of having somebody like Storm Team 8 who can kind of stay on top of it. And really, we have seen sort of a dramatic decrease in sort of the death tolls and these big storms across West Michigan. I think in the story we have a graphic that actually just popped up that kind of shows that about 17 people died in that one tornado back in 1956, and over the past 40 years it's only been 11. I say only just because of the over a course of 40 years, it's vastly different than just that one tornado on that one day. Does it kind of mean, is it basically just coming from having a Storm Team 8, just being able to prepare people, or are people maybe, taking these things more seriously after seeing a storm of that magnitude?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that people were taking it less seriously back then. I definitely think it's a credit to the tools that we have in place now. Not obviously Storm Team 8, which we love here, but the National Weather Service, the other meteorologists in the region, and the advanced technology we have to get out ahead of these storms, just to to preach the importance of safety and just being prepared. And I know our teammates at Storm Team 8 would say the same thing of they're never trying to scare anyone. They just want to make sure that people are as informed as possible, to make the decisions for themselves and to know what to do if trouble arises.
Right, absolutely. If you have not gotten the chance to check out Matt's Sunday story, I highly encourage you. It is titled Black as Coal, Eyewitnesses Reflect on West Michigan's Deadliest Tornado. You can find it right now over on our website, woodtv.com. You can also find it if you're watching us on Facebook. It is linked below in the description box and in the comments section. And of course, also what you can find on Wood TV right now is all of the latest information regarding today's severe weather. As we've mentioned, we want everybody to stay safe, and it's best to just stay informed on top of everything, get all the latest information from Storm Team 8. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the live desk today. We really do appreciate it.
Anytime, Phil. Thanks.
And I want to thank everybody else for tuning into this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Pinarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.